So I was recently given this gadget here. Buddy of mine got it at an auction. He didn't even know what the heck it was. It's got a VGA component output, YPBPR, video out, audio out, DC in, little power switch, RS-232 plug on the side, and on the side it's got an I/O cable, a reset button, and a Dolby AC3. He didn't really know what the heck the thing was, other than the fact that it took a compact flash card. So I plugged it into a computer monitor, and lo and behold, it was a display for a Bose Cinemate 2 system, as in the Cinemate 2 logo on it. Now this thing took me months to find any information on it. I searched the internet. I couldn't find anything. I started going through images of media players because I knew it was a media player of some type. And I eventually figured out that it was one called an MPL-026. Okay, great. It took a specific file format. The file had to be named a specific name, and it could be controlled by an RS-232 to play daughter files of the original. So basically what it would do is it would play like a stored demo, and then you could push buttons on the display and it would display another file to go along with it. And I thought, well, this might be really useful if I could figure out a way to actually make this thing more useful than just playing a file of a specific name. So I got to doing a little bit of research and found that it operated on 12 volts, which was pretty standard. Used a compact flash card, but I found that I could get into the menu if I had a remote control that would work it. Thing is, I don't have a remote control that would work this, or at least I didn't think I did, until I tried one of my cable boxes for my television subscription. By searching through the DVD codes, I found that I actually could get into the menu. Once I got the remote programmed, I found I was able to, by pressing the stop button and then pressing the right arrow and then OK and then the right arrow and then OK, I was able to get into a setup menu. And from the setup menu, I was able to make some changes. By default, this thing was set to Cinemate 2. And in Cinemate 2, that was for the Bose, and you can see if you look down here, this was a custom build specifically for Bose. You see this? This was a media player that was built specifically for Bose on their in-store kiosks. And I found that I was able to change the file flow from Cinemate 2 to Cinemate 1. In Cinemate 1, it will display any type of video file I put in it, whether it's an AVI or an MPG or an M2TS or an MP4. It's really kind of cool. So once I was able to make those changes by just going into select here from Cinemate 2 to Cinemate 1 and save it. You can also select the play button, repeat default, which will play the first file it finds, or repeat all, so it'll repeat all the files, or you can have it just repeat the first file that it finds. You can even set up passwords and everything. You can set up your whether you want to have your SPDIF encoding digital or have it down converted to analog or pulse coded modulation, so it'll even output the AC3 from say an encoded file. You can set up your TV standard. It only supports up to 1024 by 768. If you're connected by the RGB output, it'll go to 720p if you plug it in with a component cable, which is just a standard DB15 to component breakout cable. So it'll display high definition. It also will display standard video and standard audio at standard definition out the AV output. But I'm going to get out of this here menu. If I can back out of this thing. going to store my settings. So any changes you make, it's going to store. And I'm just doing that using the navigation buttons on this remote here. So once it's stored the settings, it'll ask me to reboot it. There we go. And then it just starts to play the file automatically. The sound going out, the audio outputs to play through your sound system. Picture quality is very good. This is just a download of a movie that was downloaded off the internet, and it actually does a very good job of upconverting it to HD quality. My autofocus, of course, on the camera is kind of going a bit screwy because with the black screen. But as you can see, it's playing this file just fine. And it looks good. I'm obviously not going to let this file play for more than a few seconds, as I don't want to create a copyright strike here, so we'll stop it now. Now you might wonder, okay, it plays compact flash, but compact flash is not a very popular format, and it's not. What if there was a way to play an SD card on this unit? Well, there is. I showed you guys this before. This is a micro SD to compact flash adapter. So I can take a 32 gig or even probably a 64 gig. I have a 32 gig CF card here. Plug it in. Put that into the side of the unit. Turn on the power. And it's going to start playing the files that are currently on this card. Now these are a bunch of files I've downloaded off of YouTube, so I don't have to worry about showing you these ones. With the remote control now, I can stop it. It'll bring up a list of all the files that I've got. I can pick any files I like to watch. Like for example, I just happen to have my aquarium on here. These are all in different formats too. This is an M2TS file. So I can select that, press the OK button on my remote control, and it'll play that file in HD. Stop it, it'll take me back to the menu again. I can pick another file. For example, I have a down-res version of my video that I did there a week in the park, which was shot at 4K, but I down-resed it just to save space on the video card. But I can put all these different videos on this card. Now you could have dozens and dozens of movies. A 64 gig SD card will store dozens of movies, especially if the average movie is only maybe a gig in size, right? So you can have a whole collection of movies and store it on one of these units. And these units, you can pick these things up. I picked this thing up for $2, this unit. They're throwing them away, literally. But it's a cool little unit. And one more thing I've noticed, and I'll show you this as well. I was going through my collection of just basic remote controls. I had purchased one of these TV dongle, these USB TV tuners, the ones that everyone's using for software-defined radio. And of course, they all come with one of these little remote controls that use the button cell, right, for basic control of the TV tuner. And I started trying out some of these remote controls, and I found that this particular remote, it doesn't do all the functions, but I can skip files forward and backwards. I think that one mutes the sound. Yeah, mute the sound. I can turn the volume down coming out of the audio out of this thing, or turn the volume up. I think that one was power. Yeah, that one just turned it off. That's the power button. I can skip files forward and backwards. And the original mute key on here actually changes the video format, because it only outputs one format at a time. So it'll output either VGA or component, or you can switch it to output composite, or you can change the output from 1024 by 768. You can change it to 1280 by 720. You can change it to 480p and then 480i and standard definition. So that button allows me to change the video format. Now, as you see, I can advance files with this little, pretty much useless remote that was designed for a tuner card. I can swap files, change from one file to the next. It's not the fastest thing in the world at changing files, but it does the job. And I've already got my other remote control here, which I have full control using this one, infrared remote, which is kind of cool. I'll show you some of the different modes it can go in. If I press the video mode button, for example, it'll switch it down to 480p. Monitor is going to resize itself. And then I can switch it down to, this is the S video mode. Now, it's still sending out a signal, obviously, through the RGB output, but it's not going to be correct because this is now a composite format. But the standard video output is working if I plug it into a regular monitor. As you can see, I've got it now on just a regular TV using the regular video output. So it can change the resolution by just pressing the button here. Now I've put it into component mode. In component mode, it'll still output on the standard video outputs, but it's now sending a component signal to the HD output. If I had an RGB to component adapter cable, I'd be seeing it at 720 progressive on the other monitor. And now I can change modes. Now I'm back to 640 by 480. It mutes the video on the analog monitor, but now we're back into a digital output. Every time I change modes, now I can go to 800 by 600. So this is optimized for a computer monitor if you're using a computer monitor for playback. And then back to 1024 by 768. So you're able to change the resolutions. But what I'm getting at is this is a great little unit. If you find one of these little units here, that's what they do. You can put any file, all you got to do is get into the main menu. To do that, you just need to find a universal remote that will control it, such as this one here. This is actually one that's for a Cisco IPTV box, Scientific Atlanta or Cisco. I just auto-searched. I held down the DVD button, went through the auto-search until I found the code that actually turned it off with the power button. Once I found that code that turned the thing off, all of a sudden my navigation keys and everything work. I can skip to files by pressing the channel up and down. That'll skip to the next file. And I can go into the menu by pressing the stop key. I can stop it. That'll bring me into the menu. And then I found, just by trial and error and experimenting, that if I hit the right arrow key, for example, and then I hit OK, and then I hit the right arrow key, and then I hit OK again, that would take me into here where we can manage the compact flash card and change our video and audio parameters. It'll even play pictures. If you load up a bunch of JPEG files, it'll present them as a slideshow on your monitor. So it's kind of a cool little unit. If you find one of these things here and the price is right, it actually is kind of useful, but there won't be any documentation that come with it. Just look, if you find one, it's called an MPL026. There's the paperwork I printed out. It took me a while to find it, but if you find one of these things, it's kind of a neat little unit. It has the advantages over, say, using a PC, because you don't need a PC to play your media files. You can plug this directly into your TV, providing your TV has an RGB input. If your TV does not have an RGB input, you'll need to get an RGB to component adapter cable, which basically just has your standard VGA type connector on one end, and it's got your red, green, and blue video outputs on the other end for your component inputs. But the thing works great for what it is. It works great as a standalone player. You don't need a computer. You don't need a mouse. Yes, if you use a Raspberry Pi or any of those other media players, a lot of times you've got to hook up a mouse, or you use your Apple TV. You've got, well, that'll work too, but you can't put external storage on those. A lot of those devices, you're stuck with either streaming off the internet or streaming off your server. This is great because it's portable. You can take this thing. You can take this thing in the car. play video for the kids in the car, take it up to the cabin, whatever. You don't have to have a PC. You don't have to have an internet connection. You don't have to use your phone. You can just load a bunch of movies onto an SD card, plug the SD card into one of these adapters, and you're off to the races.